was a little girl, I didn't think there was anything that I liked better than ice cream. Now I'm a big girl, and I've decided there's something I like better, much better. It's called the stuff, and believe me, enough is never enough. Where's the stuff? The stuff is here now.
Oh, smooth. Tastes real good. Tasty. Sweet.
It was moving.
That's a sweaty palm. Yes, sir. Hello, sweaty palm.
You're chocolate chip Charlie.
Well, I sure as hell ain't the Kentucky Colonel.
So tell me about the stuff.
The stuff, the taste that makes you hungry for more. The stuff, taste that delivers.
They're good for us, Jason. They kill the bad things inside us.
How many times must I tell you my hands are lethal weapon?
I hope you're right.
Good evening. Welcome to this week's edition of the WayBack Movies Podcast, a show where we review the best and not so best of 80s and 90s cinema, because really, fuck the 2000s. My name is Steve, and with me on this crazy journey,
Justin.
Doctor.
Doctor.
And we're back with a movie that has stuff in it.
I'm about to say, as opposed to, like, surprise, television show.
It could happen. You never know. It could happen. It could happen. You never know. But yeah, no, we're here with another movie for you. Another one you've probably never heard of, because that's what this month is about.
That's what this show's about for the most part.
Pretty much. Although the next couple weeks we'll be covering it pretty good. I think most people will have heard it by then.
More than this.
Yeah, definitely. But with that, we are covering a film called The Stuff from June 14th, 1985. And yeah, if you've never heard of it, you're probably not the only one. So, that being said, I guess let's just jump way back and we'll talk about it in 1985. Okay, so here we are in 1985. I'm a couple weeks away from turning 3. That's about it.
-3.
Yep. Yeah.
If that's a thing.
Sure, why not? I don't know.
Let's talk about some stuff.
Let's talk about some stuff. Sorry, folks, I'm very tired literally in the middle of a work day. I have to go back to work after this, so I'm a little bit on the tired side. So if I sound a little weird, than normal, that's why. Is the appropriate term. But here we go. So, The Stuff, June 14th, 1985. Written and directed by Larry Cohen. Produced by Paul Kurta. Production company Larco Productions. Distributed by New World Pictures. Box office of, I don't know. No one could find it.
Yeah, not available.
Nope. Against a budget of $1.7 million.
Although, it said that it did make its money back, so
yeah,
that should tell you something.
I mean, in all fairness, it's kind of hard not to make $1.7 million back, but sometimes you never know. So the cast. Michael Moriarty is David Mo Rutherford. Andrea Marcovici is Nicole. Garrett Morris is Charles W. Chocolate Chip Charlie Hobbs. Paul Sorvino is Colonel Malcolm Gromit Spears. Scott Bloom as Jason. Danny Aiello as Mr. Vickers. Patrick O'Neill as Fletcher. Alexander Scorby as Evans. Russell Neep, I guess, as Richards. And Ratanaya Alda as the psychologist. So the production of this, not too much, but I did find some things. I scoured the internet, if you will. The script was an original story by Cohen. He said, "My main inspiration was the consumerism and corporate greed found in our country, and the damaging products that were being sold. I was constantly reading in the newspaper about various goods and materials being recalled because they were harming people. For example, you had foods being pulled off market because they were hazards to people's health." Cohen was particularly influenced by the sheer volume of junk food we consume every day. We continue to eat those foods despite the fact that some of them are killing us. That's when I started thinking that the stuff could be an imaginary product. In this case, an ice cream dessert that is being consumed by millions and is doing irreparable damage to humanity. Everybody is gobbling down the yummy food, so how can it possibly be wrong for us? For the way the stuff was marketed in the movie, he looked at ads for cigarettes before the law was passed to prevent it. He looked at he looked at that and took it to extremes, commenting in a 2010 interview. Did you know that in World War II, the cigarette companies gave the soldiers free cigarettes? They addicted a young generation of men. They've probably killed more people than all the wars combined, but the corporations don't care who they kill. They just want to make a buck. That's the stuff. Cohen wanted to cast Arsenio Hall as Chocolate Chip Charlie W. Hobbs, since he thought he was not only a good actor, but also a rising star. The executives at New World Pictures, however, wanted someone more recognizable, and thus cast Garrett Morris instead. Wonder what happened to that Arsenio Hall guy.
Oh, I heard he did some stuff.
Yeah, he did some stuff.
I don't... Like, I get it.
Yeah.
Because Garrett Morris, SNL, all that fun stuff. But, like, at that time, 1985...
Yeah. I mean, he was still recognizable because at that point, Saturday Night Live was still, like, a big tastemaker.
He wasn't on the show anymore, though.
No, but he was still known for that. And you could bank off that. It's not like now where they don't really care because SNL hasn't really mattered in a long time.
No,
so back
fair.
then, it actually cared. They actually thought it mattered. But yeah, it was kind of a...
Now, granted, again, Chocolate Chip Charlie's not in this movie a whole lot, so...
No.
Ultimately, it wouldn't have mattered.
It is well, we'll get to it when we talk about this movie, but there's some weird shit in this movie. Some of the substance for the stuff used in the movie included lots of Haagen-Dazs ice cream, yogurt, and for one scene involving an enormous avalanche-like effect for the stuff, crashing through a wall, fire extinguisher foam. Other shots, such as the ones in the giant lake of the stuff, required superimposed images and animation. In some scenes in which the stuff chases characters, a foam made of blended fish bones was used. It stank so much that as soon as the shots were done, the actors ran to a river in order to bathe and get rid of the stench.
The Hudson.
Yep.
It was 100 degrees. They needed to jump in the water anyways.
Yep, that made sense. The scene in the motel where the stuff comes out of the mattress and pillows and attacks the man on the wall and ceiling was shot in a room that could turn upside down, allowing the stuff to move up and down the wall. Yep, it was the same room used for A Nightmare on Elm Street. That made me happy.
People got use out of that room.
They did, although I think they actually did burn it down.
Well...
I think they actually did by accident.
Oopsie.
But yeah, that what? I think it was like $100,000 investment or something. That thing paid off in spades.
Yep.
Cohen hired Effects Associated to do, this is fucking weird, to do the special effects for the film. Cohen was reportedly unhappy with several shots and paid only half of what was agreed on. Effects Associated then filed a class action lawsuit. The price originally agreed to was $62,335 in an invoice dated January 10th, 1985. Effects adjusted this amount upward to $64,333.92 because of additional expenses incurred creating the shots. Cohen was unhappy with the factory explosion effects created, and he expressed his dissatisfaction by paying Effects only half the promised amount for the shot. Effects made several demands for the rest of the money, a little over $8,000. But Cohen refused. Nevertheless, Cohen incorporated Effects footage into the film and turned it over to New World Entertainment for distribution. Effects then brought this copyright infringement action, claiming that Cohen, along with his production company and New World, had no right to use the special effects footage unless he paid them in full, the full contract price. Effects also brought pendant state law claims for fraud and conspiracy to infringe copyright. The district court initially dismissed the suit, holding that it was primarily a contract dispute and did not arise under federal law. That, however, was not true, so they reversed and remanded, concluding that the plaintiff had a case and could opt to pursue the copyright infringement action instead of suing on the contract. The court recognized that the issue would be whether Effects had transferred to Cohen the rights to use the footage. Cohen's claim was that Effects had granted Cohen an implied license to use the shots. The court settled in favor of Cohen, stating the license for the footage was not dependent on full payment, according to the contract. However, the effects company now had the right to sue for the full compensation they were promised. Wasn't able to find the actual details, but it looked as though they settled on some kind of undisclosed amount.
What a long, complicated process for ultimately a movie that
no one was ever going to see. But I guarantee you, by the time...
And even for 1985, that's not a significant amount of money.
$8,000? Yeah, it is.
Is it?
For a small little company? Sure.
Oh, for a small little company, okay. But you know what I mean? In the grand scheme of things for effects back in 95.
I don't have the numbers, but I'm going to assume, adjusted for inflation, $8,000 is something like $20,000?
Okay, for like a smaller studio, sure. But just what a process.
Well, they were clearly a small studio because they were only being paid like $65,000 even then for an entire effects shot movie. You know what I mean? So they were clearly small and just getting this for publicity. But my guess is this definitely lasted infinitely longer than this movie was even relevant.
That's what I'm saying.
Speaking of which, the stuff was given a limited theatrical release in the United States by New World Pictures in June of 1985. My guess is it didn't last a month.
And that's why it made no money.
Exactly. Cohen says the film was significantly trimmed in post-production. Yeah, no shit. When you see this movie, you can fucking tell. There's a whole bunch of shit that makes no sense because they just cut to something else. You're like, wait, what? Why is this happening? Okay, we'll just ignore it. We did lose a few funny scenes that I wanted to keep. When I showed New World my original cut, they felt strongly that the film should move a lot faster. I realized that I'd made a picture that was a little too dense and sophisticated. Really? So we increased the pacing. I know that along with some of the commercials, we did lose a romantic scene between Moriarty and Andrea that took place in a hotel room. That would have made a lot more sense. It was perhaps a wise decision to cut some of those scenes out, because I don't think that they played well in the totality of the film. Would have made a lot more sense if you did. The story
but ultimately their romance doesn't really mean a whole lot.
No.
Whether it went in depth or not.
No, but if you're going to keep scenes where it implies they have a romantic relationship, you might want to at least include something where that is agreed upon. We'll get to it in a minute. The story needed to drive forward at certain points and not be slowed down with extraneous material, although it can be painful cutting scenes out that you like. The legacy of this film, it kind of has one. Upon its release, Roger Ebert gave it 1.5 stars out of 5, saying, "The Stuff is a wildly ambitious movie that fails because it forgets to attend to its bottom line. Before you can make a clever, funny, satirical horror film, first you have to make a horror film." He's kind of right. Cohen says that New World Pictures Company was slightly unhappy with the resulting movie. New World wanted a straight-up horror film, and in retrospect, the stuff had more comedic aspects to it than the executives were perhaps expecting. They thought they were going to get a flat-out horror movie with a lot of gore and scares, and we made a film that was more satirical and a lot more humor and commentary in it. We played the characters for laughs in many cases, and that greatly diluted the horror element. It made the stuff more of what I would consider a Larry Cohen movie, but less of a conventional commercial horror film. I think New World were disappointed that the stuff wasn't more horrific and nasty, more of a balls-out monster movie. I knew before the film even hit theaters the stuff would appeal to a different audience than the one that we were trying to get. The film was not a hit, and Cohen feels that it was hurt by the fact that it was sold as a horror film when it was basically a satirical comedy. It received positive reviews from critics. He claimed the day the stuff opened in New York, a hurricane hit and the newspapers were not delivered. Of course, we had received all those great reviews, but it didn't matter because nobody ever got to read a single word of them. When did you get a great review? I couldn't find one.
Well, that's Larry Cohen. He's a bit of a nut.
Yeah, clearly.
We'll get to his other movies eventually on this show. He's a bit of a nut.
Well, it's funny you should say that. Garrett Morris was asked about this film when he participated in AV Club's Random Roles interview series. He said the production was crazy, and when the interviewer noted Larry Cohen's history as a character, he asked Morris what he was like. Morris said that, "I was taught growing up that if you don't have something nice to say about someone, don't say anything at all." Saying nothing else about Cohen.
Yeah.
The film was released on VHS by New World Home Video. Its first DVD was released by Anchor Bay Entertainment in 2000, because that's what Anchor Bay does. On September 11th, 2011, Image Entertainment released the stuff under its Midnight Madness series banner on DVD. It's a direct port of the Anchor Bay Entertainment DVD release, which happens a lot as well. A special edition Blu-ray was released in the United Kingdom on March 10th, 2013 by Arrow Films.
And that is the copy that I thankfully picked up a few weeks ago.
Yes.
In anticipation for this film. It has a nice hour-long little documentary on there explaining all of this. And also, basically, people going, listen. About Larry.
We need to talk about Larry.
There's Larry the friend and Larry the director. You have to know one to know the other, because he's a bit of a dick. Like, in not so certain terms, the guy's like, he's a bit of a dick when he's directing. But he means well.
That's what you want. That's what you want describing you. Well, he means well. He really does.
But he's a bit of a wing nut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
as the Brits would say, he's a bit of